Hello, hello, hello. This is Gresh from the I Am CEO podcast, and I have a very special guest on the show today. I have Karen Bate of KB Concepts PR. Karen, it's awesome to have you on the show.
So great to be here. Thank you.
Definitely super excited to have you on as well. And before we jumped in, I want to read a little bit more about Karen so you can hear about all the awesome things that she's doing. And with more than 25 years of experience in nonprofit and corporate communications, Karen Bate, founder and CEO of KB Concepts PR, rebrands companies and nonprofits, positions organizations to achieve their objectives, garners key media placements, and harnesses digital marketing and social media tools to tell her clients' stories and inspire others to support them. Great ideas for good causes is not just her company tagline, it is the guiding philosophy by her work. Karen, are you ready to speak to the IMCO community?
Absolutely. I'd be delighted.
I'm delighted to have you on as well. And to kick off everything, I wanted to rewind the clock a little bit here, a little bit more on how you got started, what I call your CEO story.
Well, I originally started out as a journalist in New England, and I worked in journalism for a few years, and I was very interested in politics and everything going on in the world. So I moved to DC and I got a job on Capitol Hill as a press secretary. And I quickly realized that after having covered politicians and other newsmakers for a long time, I really didn't have the reverence of them that I think is required to work for them on Capitol Hill. I like to say that I just was far too irreverent for that environment, and I found a lot of it really kind of off-putting. So I only worked on the Hill for a short time. I lived on the Hill for a while, and I loved it. But I went into nonprofit PR, and I worked in nonprofit PR for about 10 years. And then I started my own business. And my initial clients were former nonprofit people and organizations that I worked for. And that's where my tagline, Great Ideas for Good Causes, came from. Because I really, for me, what gets me out of bed every day is not just working and earning money, but doing something that I think really changes our community, helps do something good, helps put something positive out in the world, and helps make things better for people and for our communities. So I feel like I was very clever in combining my work and doing good in the world, and it's made it really rewarding for me.
Yeah, that's where the beauty comes from. I always believe when you're able to kind of take, two different things and combine them together. And it sounds like you have those passions, that expertise, and able to combine them to not just do great work, but also do great work for great causes as well, too. That's definitely a win-win-win if I could define it.
Absolutely. I love working. I have a new client. It's a wonderful organization in Anacostia in DC, and I'm helping them promote a new podcast and a documentary they're creating about the mental health crisis in our community caused by COVID. For populations that were already vulnerable and already struggling, a year of COVID has been really detrimental. And so they serve the neediest communities of people struggling with addiction, homelessness. They have a food bank, just like so many different ways that they try to support areas where things might be slipping through the cracks in DC. And it's such an honor to work with them and to help them do that. So that's really my favorite new client and then my new project lately.
Yeah, that's very exciting. And I think that so many times, and I don't know if you would feel the same way. I almost feel like the communication, especially the expertise you have, is kind of like its own language. And I think so many times nonprofits and organizations are mission driven. They were doing really great work, but it's maybe more important, if not just as important, to make sure that people know the work that you're doing, know about what you're doing, your causes, your mission, all of those things. So that's why I love that you help that kind of bridge that gap for them.
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. With this particular client, their website was almost indecipherable. You couldn't, there was no section that said what all their programs were or where to go to get food or where to go to get, they give out free cell phones. They have a program called Harm Reduction where they give out Narcom and condoms and face masks and all hand sanitizer, all the kinds of things that people that might be homeless or really struggling would need. And it was just not clear. So if you went to the site as either a sponsor or a donor or one of their clients, so we completely redid their website right off the bat. And now we have a newsletter and we've started social media and we're putting out information about where people can get vaccines and all that kind of stuff that really makes, they were doing a wonderful thing, but they weren't getting the word out effectively. So I'm really happy to help them with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure they're happy as well too. And of course, the people that are able to kind of get, all those, things that they're providing, for the community as well too, create that opportunity for so many people to win. And I know that kind of touches a little bit more on like how you work with your clients. So you mentioned the different arms. Is there anything additional that you do, for clients that you can tell us a little bit more about, and what you feel maybe even sets you apart is what I call your secret sauce and makes you unique?
I love that question. That's a great one. I think that, well, my services include social media management. My main service is taking the stress out of organizations who don't have their own communications departments, which is pretty much lots of nonprofits and almost every small business. And
Hmm.
we're all trying to do it all. And you have an expertise doing what you do. I have an expertise. I can't even do my own social media. It's just
Right.
overwhelming. I'm busy serving my clients and doing
Hmm.
what I do best. And that's true of so many people. So, my number one service is just taking that stress and overwhelm off people's plate by providing them with regular, good social media content. But another thing that I really stress and that I'm kind of on a rant about this year is that I think everyone posts way too much on social media. We're all drowning in it, and it makes us all even more stressed. And I refuse to post more than 3 times a week for any client. One should be about your actual business and services. One should be about best practices within your industry. And the third one should be much more big picture about why you're even doing what you do and why it matters to the world. And then I'll use all of that content to make one Insta story, video kind of post too. And I tell everybody, if we all did that and followed that rule, we could all like breathe a little bit more in this crazy, just nonstop information. I mean, just going on social media, sometimes I feel my blood pressure going up, even if it's all good stuff. So I try to help all of my clients manage that. And then in addition to that, I do email marketing, which to this day is the best form of marketing, the most successful. Um, we do blogging to get SEO and eyeballs on their websites. We do digital ads and promos. Promoted posts is a great way to reach more people because you can target wider audiences than the people who already follow you. I do media outreach. I get my clients on local morning shows, TV news programs, partnerships with local media, and things like that, podcasts. Um, any way that you can get their word out to a wider audience that you might not be reaching through your website and social media. So those are basically the main ways that I work with clients.
Yeah, I absolutely appreciate that. And as you said, there's such a, I guess, an influx of information and data that people are posting. So I love that you kind of had those three pillars that you should have, max, every week, to be able to kind of connect with your clients. Because I think so many times people use, social media and so many other tools to just bombard people rather than actually communicating, having a conversation, understanding what's relevant to them. So I love that you kind of do that work on the front end to kind of help them to be able to understand that. And do you consider that to be what I would call your secret sauce, the thing you feel kind of sets you apart, is that ability to synthesize that information?
Yes, I think that so well number my I think I have two complementary secret sauces.
Mhm.
One is to make everything you do somehow benefit your community. So whether you're selling widgets or shoes or running a nonprofit, you need to be involved in your community and letting the people in your community know that by your being there, whether it's as a small business hiring people or selling products and serving the community, or by doing some lofty mission, that being tied to your community, being involved in your community, giving back, giving your employees the opportunity to give back, that is the best marketing you can ever do. And then my second secret sauce is to simplify it all so that we are only doing in a very strategic way, targeted, maybe once a month email marketing, 3 times a week social media posts, a blog post, a decent website. You don't have to be bombarding people to get your message across effectively. And I think that people actually appreciate that. And when I start unfollowing people who bombard me all the time. So that's just not a winning strategy, I don't think.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree that. And I also feel like that's a sign of, I've always felt like, and I think Steve Jobs has this concept where, or quote there, he talks about, design and how design is not when you're flooding yourself or flooding, your website or whatever it is with many complex things. It's really simplicity, because simplicity shows that you really have an understanding and you're able to simplify it to communicate or do whatever your goal might be. And I think so many times people, forget that piece of what they're doing. And I love how even that kind of, to me, aligns with what we're doing and why we're doing it. Because I think if we
Yes.
really drill down on what impact we're trying to make, why we create this nonprofit or even this small business or medium-sized business, it really drills down to your why, and to be able to showcase that and to know that is so huge in terms of like understanding what to do and what not to do.
Definitely. And also this year, with all of the huge spotlight on diversity and equality and looking at organizations and who's on their boards, who's on their staff, who are they putting out, what do their social media posts look like, what do their ads look like? And every organization across the country, from the New York Times to every board, suddenly looked and went, oh my God, we're not really showing enough representation of people of color. So, and I have run, I founded and ran an organization of women business owners for the last 7 years, and it's called Awesome Women Entrepreneurs. And we actually merged it with the local Arlington Chamber of Commerce last year. And one of our proudest aspects of the organization was that we were very focused on that from day one back in 2014. We won awards for it. And now we're bringing that sensibility to our local chamber too. And you probably know Arlington, Virginia is not the most diverse community in the DC area, and but they have an amazing number of women of color, people of color running incredible organizations, leaders in every field. And I'm hoping to help get their, get their faces and their stories out there, just like all the other organizations in the country that are doing that right now.
Yeah, absolutely appreciate, you doing that. And you mentioned that as well too, because I think so many times a lot of those things and those initiatives begin with the awareness of looking in the mirror, so to speak, about what your organization is composed of, what the missions are, what the goals are, and seeing, how that aligns. So I love that you've been able to charge that and then bring that to, the Arlington community. And I'm sure that reverberates very well beyond that, and seeing the impact that you're having. So I wanted to switch gears a little bit, and I wanted to ask you for what I call a CEO hack. So this could be like an app, a book, or a habit that you have, but what's something that makes you more effective and efficient?
So I'm going to do one that might be a little different than what you usually hear. It's not an app, it's not a hack. My biggest advice to every young woman that I mentor who has started their own business, and really anyone new in our community, is to get involved in the community, to join your local chamber of commerce or your local networking group. When we ran AWE, we of course wanted women to join AWE, but the chamber wanted a women only networking arm. So we worked with the leaders there and brought it into them so that all of the business community would be under one umbrella. And the Arlington Chamber is an amazing organization. The DC Chamber is awesome. All of the local chambers are great. And I can't emphasize enough that when you, as a small business owner, join your local chamber, make that investment, which can be, from 500 to $1,000 a year, and then sign up for some of the committees and get involved in community engagement or in the environmental committee, or there's so many different ways to get involved. And if you do that, you cannot lose your business. You will start getting referred, because everyone within the chamber knows that their number one goal is to support the other members and to refer them for every business opportunity that comes along. There's even lead share groups within the chambers that are like BNIs, but it comes with your membership. And everybody in that group refers other business to you all the time. You become kind of like friends and supporters. So I think that is a really good tip for people that run their own businesses in terms of being more successful.
Yeah, I absolutely appreciate you for mentioning that, and I think especially within this last year, the frustrations, the changes, the disruption, all that has happened. I think being able to lean on local, and especially those people that are having those same missions, is absolutely huge. You having created that, and and continuing to kind of help out so many organizations and people with that. I love that hack, just because so many times we're looking so much farther to try to get that support, when a lot of times we have that right on our doorstep, and we just have to look at our local organizations that we can get involved in.
Well, and I mean, all the research shows that the vast majority of small business referrals are local, unless you're running an online, shopping big
Mhm.
commerce site or something like that. Your referrals come from local, and so what better way to get more referrals than networking in your local community with other business owners that might need the services you provide. I just have always been a big fan of that, and it to me, you could look at your marketing budget for a year and you could spend money on advertising, which can be very diffuse, or you can spend it on belonging to an organization where you actually have person to person contact. And throughout this whole past year, we have had so many virtual events where 75, 100 people are there,
Mhm.
all listening to one another and listening to speakers. They haven't missed a beat, even with no in person meetings.
Yeah, absolutely. The connection is still happening. It's just happening sometimes in a different way. So, I absolutely appreciate that hack. And so I wanted to ask you now for what I call a CEO nugget. So this could be a word of wisdom or a piece of advice. It might be something you would tell your younger business self if you were to hop in a time machine, or you might also tell a client.
I love that question, Graham. That's such a good question. I think if I could talk to my younger self, I would be less afraid or intimidated to ask for advice from people who were way farther along in their careers than me. I would be less uh, afraid to reach out to even a rock star, because I've heard from people that are major rock stars like Seth Godin, or any of these amazing people that have written books about marketing and success, that people always think that and hardly ever write to them or ask them for questions, and when they do, they're more than happy to shoot them an email response and support them. And every time I've asked anyone, including like the top person in an organization, for advice, they are more than happy to help me, invite me for coffee, schedule a phone call, sit down and share their wisdom. And now that I'm a more seasoned person, I do it all the time for young people too. And I think that anyone starting out or in the early stages should try to get a mentor within their organization or within their industry, and should never hesitate to ask anyone who seems really successful especially if it's a specific area they're struggling with, or even just in general, what do you think my next move should be? Am I on the right path? Am I going in the right direction? What's your advice?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think so many times, as you mentioned, those rock stars, people get to that success level, however we define that, have had people that have helped them out that they've been able to reach out to. So they love that opportunity to give back. But sometimes you don't know how to give back, or if you can give back unless somebody asks. And it's so important for us to remind ourselves of being able to ask, and give that opportunity for people to give. And I think that win-win opportunity really sets things, makes things takes things to another level, just because they have an opportunity to give, the person that asks has the opportunity to receive, and you get to continue to kind of grow together.
And I also always urged all the women in awe and everyone, business people I know, that if they're not already mentoring anyone, that they should look around and try, even if they're not asked by someone, because sometimes the younger people don't even think to ask. But we
Mhm.
should all be open to it. You have so much experience with all the things you've done. I hope you're mentoring some young people who are. Um, could follow your guide and your steps and be just as successful as you are. And that's just another really great way to give back.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's, the official mentoring and the unofficial mentoring. But the point is that you're creating that forward motion and helping somebody, because you never know where they are and where they could end up being. So I appreciate you for showcasing that. And so now I want to ask you my absolute favorite question, which is the definition of what it means to be a CEO. And we're hoping to have different quote unquote CEOs on the show. So Karen, what does being a CEO mean to you?
Wow. Yeah, that's a good one. I think that, well, being a CEO means that number one, you're your own boss, which is why I went down the road to entrepreneurship to begin with. I'm from a long line of entrepreneurs, both of my parents, all my brothers. And it was just inevitable that I would become one. And I do love being my own boss. I feel like we who are our own bosses maybe had a little bit of an easier time making the transition to an all virtual world. I was already working from home. I was already sitting at this desktop having lots of meetings on Zoom.
Mhm.
I had discovered that I could meet with my clients easily on Zoom and didn't have to be traveling all over the place. And even from my rare face to face meetings that I was having with them, we all found it more convenient. And that was before the pandemic. So it wasn't
Mhm.
a huge change for me in that way. And so that's one thing, the being your own boss and having kind of control of your destiny. But the other most important way is what I've talked about a lot before and is part of my company's secret sauce. It's that I feel a responsibility to my community as a CEO and as a woman CEO. I feel a responsibility to lift up other women, to support them, refer them all the time, and also support the entire business community, give back wherever I can, volunteer for the local nonprofits, help share I do have a social media following, so I often share events. This past Saturday, I was a sponsor and participated in the Run for Her Life 5K and yoga event that was held by the Black Parents of Arlington and Arlington for Justice. It was a group of people that got together and started those organizations. And it was the 1 year anniversary of the murder of Breonna Taylor. So
Mhm.
we all got together and marched through the streets of Arlington. And I shared it on social media and was happy to be part of it. And like that's just something that's in my DNA. I think that you need to be involved in your community. You need to be doing that kind of thing and showing up as a business. I'm not just a business leader. I want to be a leader in the community in that way too.
Nice. I definitely appreciate that so much because I think so many times we will look at life and sometimes aspects of our life in silos, but not realizing that our business gives us that opportunity and that platform to be able to affect change, to be able to have a voice and to communicate certain things that you're passionate about and you know that will help out the community at a greater good. And to be able to understand that, have that flexibility to be able to create that change and innovate, as we talked about, being ahead of the curve in terms of working virtually. I think a lot of times it allows you to really, be a leader in so many different ways. And that's one of the beautiful things about being a quote unquote CEO. So I appreciate that, Karen.
Thank you, Gresham. I appreciate you having me. And I also I think that when you give, it's so much more, money, success in that way is fine. But really, my greatest successes, and it's the old cliche, like, what are you going to be most proud of when you're on your deathbed? You're not going to be most proud of how much money you made you're going to be proud of what you gave back. I think that's true of everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely echo that as well. So, Karen, truly appreciate you for being that person. I appreciate your time. What I wanted to do is just pass you the mic, so to speak, just to see if there's anything additional you want to let our readers and listeners know. And of course, how best they can get a hold of you and find out about all the awesome things you're working on.
Thank you so much. Well, your listeners can find anything they want about my company at kbconceptspr.com or kbconcepts.com, and on my social media, which is Karen Bate, and on Instagram, it's got KB Concepts. On I think Twitter is KB Concepts, but Facebook and LinkedIn are my name. So they can reach me at any of those and follow me and support any of the things that I have currently going on because I always have something going on. And otherwise, I just urge everyone to get involved in your own business community. And if you're here in the DC area, check out the Arlington Chamber because we have an awesome female founders roundtable event every month, a women in business networking event every month. And on April 30th, we have the Women in Business Summit, which is the former OSS Summit happening. And it's all online, and there'll be hundreds of women presenting and getting together just to support one another.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, Karen. We will have the links and information in the show notes as well, too, so that everybody can follow up with you. But I appreciate you for reminding us how important it is to be a great business leader, but maybe even more importantly, to be a leader within the community and how that goes hand in hand, not siloed as we talked about before. So appreciate you for doing that, reminding us of that. And I hope you have a great rest of the day.
You too, Gresham. Thanks so much.